Right now, at this very moment, there is a quiet negotiation taking place around you. Not in words, not in arguments, not in anything dramatic enough to trigger your alarm systems. It's happening in tone, in pauses, in who speaks first, who waits, who explains, who stays silent. Most people never notice it. And because they don't notice it, they lose ground, slowly, politely, without ever understanding how or why. Power rarely takes the form of force. Real power prefers subtlety. It prefers comfort. It prefers to move through you without resistance. You probably believe you are rational, that you evaluate situations logically, that you decide based on facts, intentions, and fairness. But the uncomfortable truth is that most of your decisions are reactions. Reactions to emotional pressure, to social cues, to invisible dynamics your nervous system learned long before you had language to describe them. And anyone who understands those dynamics, even intuitively, can influence outcomes while you're still trying to be reasonable. This is what people mean when they talk about dark psychology, not cruelty, not villainy, but the shadow side of human behavior, the unspoken strategies people use to feel safe, important, admired, or in control. These strategies don't require intelligence. They require awareness of how humans actually behave under pressure. And that's why they work so well on people who consider themselves thoughtful, empathetic, or fair. Those traits, without boundaries, become vulnerabilities. And here's the part no one tells you. Manipulation doesn't begin when someone asks for something. It begins when your body decides that discomfort is dangerous, when tension feels like a threat, when silence feels like rejection, when disappointment feels like punishment. If you can't tolerate those small internal storms, you'll hand over pieces of yourself just to make the weather calm again. One of the most common ways power moves unnoticed is through favors, small requests, innocent asks. Help me with this. Can you do me a quick favor? Nothing that feels exploitative. In fact, it feels cooperative, human. You say yes because you can. Then it happens again and again. Over time, you notice something strange. You feel more connected to this person, more invested, more reluctant to say no, even though they haven't done much for you in return. This happens because your brain seeks consistency. If you keep helping someone, your mind concludes you must value them. Otherwise, your behavior wouldn't make sense. The bond forms internally. But there's an even darker layer underneath favors, the invisible debt, the unspoken expectation that good people don't suddenly stop being helpful. So when you finally hesitate, the pressure isn't just external, it's moral. You feel selfish, cold, unkind, and that's how the trap closes, without anyone ever raising their voice. The danger signs are repetition and escalation. The counter is restraint, pausing before agreeing, saying no without justification. The mistake most people make is explaining, which turns a boundary into an invitation to negotiate. Another tactic works in the opposite direction. Instead of asking for something, the person withdraws something. Silence, not neutral silence, strategic silence. They go quiet after you ask a question, after you assert yourself, after you express discomfort. Nothing is said, but your body reacts. Anxiety rises. Your mind races. You feel compelled to fill the gap, to smooth things over, to restore balance. Silence works because humans fear social disconnection more than almost anything else. We would rather give ground than sit in uncertainty. And when you break the silence, notice what you often do. You reduce yourself. You soften the truth. You turn certainty into a suggestion. You add little disclaimers like, maybe it's just me, or I don't want to be dramatic. That's not communication. That's retreat. The warning sign is urgency, the feeling that you need to speak first. The counter is stillness. Let the silence exist. Let the other person hold it. Silence only controls you if you fear it. Then there is mirroring. Someone reflects your tone, your gestures, your humor, your beliefs. Conversations feel effortless. You feel seen, understood. Finally, someone who gets you. But when alignment appears too quickly, it's often engineered. Mirroring works because similarity creates trust, and trust lowers defenses. And once your defenses are down, you start offering more personal stories, more emotional access, more forgiveness when things don't add up, because your brain has labeled them as safe. The red flags are exaggerated agreement, rapid intimacy, and a sense that everything lines up too perfectly. The counter is time. Slow the pace. Ask neutral questions. Real connection survives patience. False connection needs speed. Some tactics feel intoxicating rather than comfortable. Idealization, love bombing, overwhelming praise, constant attention. You're exceptional. You're different. You're exactly what they've been looking for. This floods the brain with dopamine. Intensity feels like intimacy, but intensity without stability is not connection. It's control. And the real danger is that your mind starts chasing the feeling of being chosen. Once someone puts you on a pedestal, you begin living in fear of falling off it. So you start editing yourself, performing, staying agreeable, because the praise becomes a leash made of gold. The warning signs are urgency, extremes, and pressure to commit early. The counter is grounding. Maintain your routines. Keep perspective. Anyone who respects you will not rush your boundaries. Other tactics don't feel good at all. They feel confusing. Small contradictions. Subtle denials. That's not what I said. You're overthinking. You're remembering it wrong. These are gaslighting micro moves, not dramatic enough to confront, but persistent enough to destabilize. They work because memory is fragile and self-doubt is powerful, and gaslighting is rarely one big lie. It's a slow erosion. You start keeping mental notes, replaying conversations at night, searching for proof that you're not crazy. You become your own investigator. And the most brutal part? You start trusting their confidence more than your own clarity. The warning signs are confusion after clear conversations and a growing reliance on their version of events. The counter is grounding in reality. Anchor yourself to facts. State your perception calmly and stop debating emotions. The mistake is trying to convince them. Gaslighting does not end through persuasion. Then comes inconsistency, warmth followed by distance, attention followed by absence, just enough reward to keep you hoping. This creates addiction, not connection. Your nervous system starts chasing relief. This works because unpredictable rewards are the most addictive pattern the brain knows. And you don't call it addiction. You call it chemistry. You call it a complicated situation. You call it timing. You call it maybe they're just stressed. But your body knows the truth. You're not in love with the person. You're attached to the pattern. The signs are emotional highs and lows, preoccupation with their approval, and rationalizing behavior that hurts you. The counter is pattern recognition. Judge behavior by consistency, not intensity. The mistake is romanticizing chaos as mystery. Some pressure builds slowly, almost invisibly. A small agreement here, a small favor there. Over time, the requests grow. Foot in the door works because commitment reshapes identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who already agreed. Saying no later feels like betrayal. And this is where people get trapped in roles they never chose. The helper, the listener, the peacemaker, the one who understands, the one who always handles it. At first it feels like being valued. Later it feels like being used. The danger signs are gradual escalation and guilt when you hesitate. The counter is checkpoints. You are allowed to reassess. You are allowed to stop. The mistake is honoring past consent when present reality has changed. Then there is triangulation. A third voice enters the dynamic. They think you should. Everyone agrees. Someone else's opinion is used to pressure you without being present. This works because social proof is powerful. We fear being isolated or judged, but notice what triangulation really does. It makes you defend yourself against a crowd that isn't even in the room. It drains your energy. It shifts the conversation away from the actual issue and into your need to be approved. The warning signs are vague authority, indirect comparisons, and pressure framed as consensus. The counter is directness. Bring the conversation back to the source. Refuse to defend yourself to an invisible jury. There's also a quieter cousin of triangulation, comparison. Why can't you be more like them? They wouldn't react this way. It's not an argument. It's a wound, because it threatens your belonging. It makes you feel replaceable. And once you feel replaceable, you start bargaining for your place. And another move that shows up everywhere is the loaded question. Not, can you do this, but are you really going to say no? Not, what do you think, but you agree with me, right? It forces you to prove you're good, loyal, reasonable. Before you even get to the point, the counter is noticing the frame and refusing to enter it. All of these tactics rely on one thing: unconscious reaction. They only work when you respond automatically, when you rush to explain, when you try to be understood, when you seek closure at any cost. Awareness interrupts that automation. The moment you pause, the dynamic weakens. Most people are controlled not by others, but by their own fear of tension. They explain to avoid judgment. They give ground to restore harmony. They chase clarity to soothe anxiety. And that is exactly what makes them predictable. Predictability is the real currency of control. So the question isn't, how do I win against manipulators? The question is, where do I abandon myself to stay comfortable? Where do you shrink to keep peace? Where do you overgive to avoid being disliked? Where do you apologize for having needs? Because the moment you stop doing that, something shifts. You slow down. You stop filling every silence. You stop over-justifying. You stop volunteering your innocence. And people feel it, not consciously, viscerally. You become harder to rush, harder to confuse, harder to manipulate. Your presence gains weight, not because you dominate, but because you no longer dissolve under pressure. This isn't about becoming cold or suspicious. It's about becoming centered. Power is not aggression. It's stability. It's the ability to remain intact while others push, to choose responses instead of being dragged into them, to allow discomfort without rushing to erase it. Once you see these patterns clearly, you'll notice them everywhere, in conversations, in relationships, in workplaces. And you'll also notice something else. People treat you differently when you stop playing along unconsciously. Some will respect you more, others will pull away. Both outcomes are information. Because the deepest form of power is not control over others. It's ownership of yourself. And once you have that, you stop asking the world to treat you fairly. You start deciding what you allow. And the world adjusts whether it wants to or not. That is what awareness does. It doesn't make you dangerous. It makes you free.